Off the Record, brought to you by Nana Music Productions. I am Tatiana, your host, and today we have Joe Snider, almost alumni and graduate from Troy University, but he is currently our production director with Nana Music Productions. So welcome.
Good to see you, Tati. Always lovely to be anywhere where you are.
Absolutely. Thank you so much on that.
Yes,
But we're going to talk about something that's really interesting for our sound engineers and our music producers and artists as far as, a topic that isn't really talked about too much. So, Joe, can we hear a little bit about what you're talking about today?
Absolutely. Today, we're going to talk about sound engineering, not so much the technical side, but the philosophical side and how you can put yourself into the mix and how you are just as important as anybody else when it comes to the project that you're working on.
Wow, yeah, that's very deep because again, not a lot of sound engineers get that opportunity to be able to explore that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
So we got 4 topics today.
Okay.
The first one is going to be the customer is always right.
Okay.
Always right. I know that's a hard topic, but the customer is always right. The second one we got is you are just as important as the artist, the songwriter, and the producers or whoever else is involved in the project.
Yeah.
And then the third thing we got is know your equipment. Know all of your equipment.
There's a reason why you're called an engineer, right?
Yes. And the fourth thing we got is it is your responsibility to craft, balance, and enhance the sound without distorting the idea of what the project should be.
Okay, what does that mean though?
So essentially, you are the sculptor.
Okay.
You don't bring the materials. You don't bring anything else. Your entire job is to sculpt the statue of David, if you will.
Yeah.
And make sure that it is able to be listened to by the general audience and the people who understand the details of what you do.
Okay. So what does that mean then? Because you're the one who is doing all the sculpting and everything like that. But okay, but what does that mean to be an audio engineer then?
So let's get into that. Let's talk about what an audio engineer is first.
Yeah.
So the audio engineer is the person behind the soundboard.
Okay.
You are the one, not necessarily the one man, but you are the one in charge. If you are in, especially in live sound, you are the front of house engineer. Or
Okay.
if you're in a studio, you're the studio engineer. So there are multiple types of audio engineers.
Okay.
One is live, one is studio, and there's a bunch more. But we're going to talk about live and studio mainly today.
Okay.
There are a bunch of different responsibilities that you have, but for live, your main job is to enhance the experience of what the project, the album, the concert, whatever it is, your job is to make sure that you enhance the experience of the audience. In a studio session, the perfection of the tracks and everything else that goes into it, the perfection of what it is when somebody's listening back to in their earphones or somebody's listening in their car, whatever it is to make sure that everything and every recording is placed meticulously to make sure that the perfection is able to be replayed and replayed and replayed.
And it's not saying that with the live sound engineering that you don't have that perfection, but what I'm hearing is the first goal of live sound is to make sure the quality for the listener is optimal. And then being able to then do the tweaking behind the scenes to be sure that that's, the way that it needs to be on the audio side. So, like, for example, if audio is being recorded, then that technical can be able to be done.
Yes.
But in a studio session, that is more of you have all the time to be able to make sure that it is in that crisp pocket and make it the way that you want it to sound. Or not necessarily you, because it's more of the producer or the songwriter, right?
Yes.
Because you were just saying, the customer's always right. So, who's the customer in this?
So in a live setting, the customer is actually the audience. The audience and what they are feeling and what they are hearing and seeing with the lights and the sound and everything. The audience is the customer for live sound.
And I'm going to break you on that because currently we are in a live setting. We are currently at Wishbone Cafe in Montgomery, Alabama with a live audience. Hello, audience. Can we hear y'all in the background? We're over here just having our home conversation, and it's
Right.
like, hey, we need to make sure that y'all guys get some love too. So also, if you didn't already, Signature Sweet Tea, you better get this stuff because it's so good. But yeah, if you haven't been to Wishbone Cafe, come on over here. So that's our sponsor for right now. But getting back to it, so you guys are considered our customer in this recording. So so that means that they're right if we don't sound good, right?
Yeah, honestly. And just to expound upon that, if the audience is not able to hear clearly or hear the quality of what is happening on stage, then to put it into the worst terms possible, you're not doing your job
You've lost them.
effectively. Exactly. And so that's the customer when it comes to a live sound. Let's say you go to a concert. And when you go to this concert, if you're not able to hear the artist effectively, or you're not able to hear what is happening on stage effectively, then you've lost the audience.
Yeah.
They can't understand what's happening and they can't hear, and they've paid money to be there.
Yeah, it's the customer has made that investment, so they
Yes.
need that return on investment.
Yes.
So now, how does that translate now to the studio side?
So in the studio, you have, depending on what your contract is, you have either your deadline or you have all the time in the world to make the cuts and the edits and the frequency changes to make everything fit sonically to be where it needs to be. And then whenever the customer is downloading the song off of Spotify or Apple Music, or they're listening on YouTube, or they're wherever they're listening to it, the recorded audio, they have to be able to hear that in every speaker system, in every car, in every headphone that there is.
Yeah.
And that's
The
part of-
perfection of it.
yes, and that's why it's so hard, and that's why it takes so much time when it comes to studio work.
So it's perfection versus like live experience.
Yes.
Okay, so with the sound engineer, you are the one that's creating and you're crafting it. But what makes you different from the producer?
So there's a lot of different things that make you different from a producer. I know that we see a lot of producers who are engineers. Do not get those confused. An engineer is the person who is supposed to sculpt the idea, make it fit all sonically in the range that it's supposed to fit. A producer is the one who is supposed to take the ideas and make the ideas and convey them to the entire faculty, if you will, of the project. So the producer is telling the songwriter, hey, I need this, or they're telling the artist, hey, I need this. And then they're also telling you, hey, I want this to fit here and everywhere in between. So the producer is mainly the guy who is conveying the idea. You're the one who is shaping the idea as an audio engineer.
So to put it maybe in a more anatomical kind of way, the songwriter creates the bones.
Yes.
The sound engineer puts the meats on the bones, but the producer breathes the life into it.
Yes.
Got it. Okay,
Yes.
nice.
And not only just that, there's a bunch of people that we know that do both. And that's perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that there's a distinct difference in if you want to be just a sound engineer or you want to be just a producer. So when you take famous people that we listen to all the time, there's Timbaland, there's Kanye West, there's Pharrell Williams, there's Daft Punk. They do both, and they understand the difference between both. But when they produce the song in the studio, they produce it and they make sure the idea is conveyed accurately. But when they engineer it and they put it on the album, they sit back and they take the time and they make the cuts and they make the imperfections into perfection.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's great perspective on that because, for me, I'm a songwriter and I'm a singer. And I'm also a producer. And so I've been able to be in every role except for the sound engineering role because, I did get, lessons and stuff on that, but that's not my forte. I like to be able to express what I want the song to sound like.
Yeah.
And then I come into you as a sound engineer and be like, I need you to make that in a technical term. It's kind of like, a coding person, a person who does coding. It's like you take what the objective is and you translate it to the zeros and ones and the code to be able to make that happen. And so, which is, again, the reason why it's an engineer. I mean, I will say, it's very, I love that our sound engineers are great with what they do, but they don't get the credit enough to be able to be like, you are an engineer, like, other engineers are. They think, oh, you're a sound engineer kind of thing. And it's like, oh, you're just doing music. But it's more to than just putting music and putting parts together and EQing and volume and all that stuff. It's very in depth if you really want to get into it. And if you're a good sound engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one thing that you said that made me think of this. We learned under the same person. His name is Robert W. Smith. He passed away, but a wonderful, wonderful leader in music, and he understood the different languages that it takes to speak to each individual person on a project. So when you speak to an artist, and you let's just say you're speaking drums,
Okay.
and you need a groove, and it's
Yeah.
but you can't speak that to anybody else on stage. So you've got to speak directly to that person and know the language that they need to hear to understand what they need to play.
Yeah.
But then you have to translate back over to the sound engineer and you say, hey, I need the low end of this and I need maybe a 2K on the frequency spectrum to be a little bit boosted. You've got to learn, as a producer, you've got to learn to speak those different languages. As an audio engineer, you have to understand all those different languages to make sure that they fit in the sonic space of what the genre of the song is.
So you're literally a language interpreter
Yes.
when it comes down to the
Yes.
language of music, because I think that's something that people don't, or at least not musicians don't understand. This is a different language that we're speaking.
Yes.
The fact that we're able to read music on sheets and stuff like that, that's a whole different language and stuff.
Yes.
So, but what you're honing in on is the verbalization of, hey, songwriter, we need a beat that sounds like a certain way. Okay, sound engineer, we need to EQ this a certain way and add some reverb to make it sound like it's a warm room or XYZ, and being able to interpret what the feeling is that the songwriter's trying to create into that technical zeros and ones and
Yes.
going back to that coding stuff. Because it's almost like we're, the sound engineers become like a computer to be able to create what is wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not even just that, just the fact of that nobody is going to give you the same message in the same way. Some producers use adjectives. Like they say, I need this to sound more crispy, instead of saying...
That's how I do it.
and see what I'm saying? Like, I understand what you're saying when you tell me, hey, I need this to be a little more crispy, instead of you telling me, hey,
High ends and stuff like that.
I need more high end, or I need more of this frequency spectrum. And that's something you've got to be able to differentiate in when it comes to people talking to you from all different languages.
Which means you need to know your system and your
Yes.
equipment as well. Because
So-
if you can understand it, but you can't operate it, then that's a problem.
So the third point we have is know your system. Every system is different. Every system is not only just different in its outcome, but its components. So you can have a digital system, you can have an analog system, you can have anything in between in what you run to get out of your speakers. So whenever you have a digital system, you're coming into a snake that then converts to analog to digital, and then that digital feed sends out to your speakers. If not, like right now, we're running analog.
Right.
So when we run analog, we have to make sure that everything is in its place and it sits just right so that, one, we don't get feedback, And two, we know the routing for everything that is happening. And when you know the routing, then you can diagnose your problems.
Yeah, it's completing that whole circuit
Yes.
and being able to understand that these speakers and these lights and even though the lights are not really part of the system, but these speakers and these microphones are routed in the right way, that they're going in the right direction to be able to translate the sound to you as the listener, but then also to our system to be able to record it. So it's all that rewiring and stuff like that. Again, an engineer.
Yes.
So yeah.
And to put it into, I don't want to say layman's terms, but to put it in a perspective that you can make it make sense, it's like a house. So if you own an apartment or whether you own a house, whether or not, it doesn't matter. The power comes in from the power lines. That is your initial audio into the system. So me speaking into this microphone sending down the cable and into the board, that's the power into the house. After we hit the house, we hit the breaker box. The breaker box is telling you how much signal is going where and where it's going and how it's routed. Once we get to that point, then we can manipulate the sound and the signal to get exactly what we want. So you were talking about earlier, the EQ, the compressors,
Yeah.
the spread, the mono, the stereo, whatever it is, it all works as a circuit. All sound is electricity.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Again, that circuit. So that's, and going back to being an engineer. So, but yeah. So now what happens if we have too much input in something though?
So the fourth point, which we'll get to here in a second, is once you have too much energy, just like a house, if you have too much input, I'm sure most of you guys have seen that once you have too much electricity or too much voltage or too much amplitude, that you get distortion. Or in the house, if we will, the breaker then trips. So then you have to go and reset the breaker. In this case, you get distortion. So let's just say that right now we're speaking.
Right.
And we're having a good volume and everything is fine. But if I were to lean into this mic, then you get so much that it distorts and you don't get good quality.
Or you could run into the feedback when it comes down
Yes.
to things, because the input of our voice and everything is so much that it overpowers the sound in the room to
Yes.
where then it speaks to those speakers that we're listening into, and then it all just plays this big reoccurring loop. And
Yes.
now it becomes, overbearing to listen to sometimes. So being able to monitor as a sound engineer the input levels of not only, it could be from your guitar to your piano, but also the variable of a voice, because, we have to, as singers and songwriters and speakers, we have to be able to gauge when we need to lean in and when we need to, lean
Yes.
back. So there's an art to that. But as a sound engineer, if someone doesn't know that art, being able to adjust and make it where it's level across the board. So,
Yes.
that's something that is a skill that's beyond just the equipment and the system that you're working with. You're working with the bodies and the variables of the people that you're working with too.
And to expound upon the lean in and lean back, right now, if someone were to go and say, hey, I want to go do a concert for Beyonce. Let's say we're doing Cowboy
Ooh, okay.
Carter.
All
I
right.
love Cowboy Carter. Let's say we're going to do, in Atlanta, we're going to whatever stadium, and we're going to engineer for Beyonce. If Beyonce was not to know, hey, maybe when I scream or I do a note that is louder than usual, I need to lean back.
Yeah.
If she doesn't know that, you as the engineer has to understand, maybe I need to pull back her fader, or maybe I need to have another compressor on her.
I was gonna say the compressor.
To catch
Yep.
her. And so let's just say that if you're not doing Beyonce, she is very experienced, very talented woman. If you're not engineering for her, but you're engineering for someone else at a bar, most artists who are not on the professional level do not understand that you need to maybe lean back a little bit when it comes to a high note, or when it comes to a note that you have to maybe scream a little bit. And you as the engineer,
Project.
yeah, and project just anything. If they get louder than normally acceptable, you have to understand that maybe, hey, I need to pull back, and I need to catch them.
Which goes into the sound check too, because think about it. That audio engineer for that live not live recording, but that live performance. When they're doing your sound check, they're checking to see what is your normal, your singing voice, speaking voice. What is the baseline? So that way, if you go lower or higher, they know when they need to adjust, or maybe put a compressor or something to be able to boost the voice if it's a little lower. So that sound check for music artist or a musician, it's important because you're
Yes.
giving that sound engineer that baseline to be able to operate on when, maybe I didn't get their sound check the right way and they're consistent at a low, or man, they are screaming in this microphone.
Yeah.
I need to bring it back down. And so you have to be consistent as an artist or as a musician, so that way, it helps our sound engineers out, and they're not having to do acrobats to try to fix it. So yeah.
And not even just that, sound check is more important in the sense of what's coming. So let's go back to Beyonce. If Beyonce has a song and she goes up to a high note, you now know, hey, whenever the performance comes, I need to pull back at this certain point.
Which means sound engineers need to be a part of your rehearsals.
Yes.
And especially if you are going to be on tour or in a concert series,
Yes.
they are just, like how you said, just as important as the artist, as the producer, because they need to have the time to be able to do what they need to do to operate and be able to, adjust and move with you. Because just like how an artist on a stage has choreography, where they have to move to one part of the stage to another and all that stuff, that sound engineer needs to know, okay, I need to make sure at the chorus, I need to pull it down, or
Yes.
at the bridge, we need to bump it up, or maybe throw some reverb on it because it's supposed to be
Yes.
a very theatrical kind of situation.
Yes.
So the thing is, the sound engineer needs to have those cues so that way they know when to operate and move, so that way it's seamless to the listener,
Yes.
the customer.
Yes.
So yeah.
There's two things, and then we're going to move on to our next point. The first thing is, you don't have to be the smartest guy in the room to be the engineer, but you have to be one of the smartest in the room. That comes with knowing your system and knowing, point number two, that your weakest component of a system is your weakest link. Just like a chain, when it comes to physics, the weakest link is going to break first whenever you pull on it. So, as long as you know how to diagnose your problems and you know your system, you can fix anything. The second thing is, where you know your weakest link is going to be your most likely issue when it comes to fixing something. Now, I pray that you never run into issues. However, I will say the superstition runs that if you don't run into issues at the sound check, then your performance is going to be not the best.
Right.
And that's been my interpretation, at least, that if you run into issues at the sound check, you're going to have one of the best performances you've ever had. And that's
Right.
just how it works.
Because, you're able to gauge when those
Yes.
issues are going to be. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So, it makes sense. So what else do we need to know about this? You said you had a fourth topic as well?
Yeah. Before we go to that, actually,
Okay.
let me tell you why the customer is always right.
Okay.
I have a story where I just worked on an album. It's called Out Alive. It's by Populous at Troy University. Please go listen.
Spotify, every streaming platform. It's fantastic.
Amazon Music, Apple Music, everything. I was head engineer for that project. But when it came to one of the mixes that I came up with, it was, in my opinion, so good. And I loved everything about it, and I felt so good about it. However, the customer was not satisfied. So I had to go back and take away this one thing that I felt so much pride in and so much energy and effort that I put into, and I had to take it away. So if I'm not the songwriter or the producer as well as the engineer, you may have a point in time where you get to, hey, I've given this mix, I love it so much, and I want it to be on the album. However, the producer or the songwriter comes to you and goes, this is not what I had in mind. This is where we get into the point of the difference between a producer and a sound engineer. You have to be able to take the ideas the producer has and convey them accurately.
Because at the end of the day, it's not your project.
Exactly.
And with that, also, something that I learned in the workforce as well is the pride of authorship. So, you as the engineer, you knowing the technical aspects, you knowing what you did to create that, in your mind, masterpiece, that doesn't always translate to the person who you are working for.
Yeah.
And so because of that, that authorship of, I did this amazing thing, and why do they want to change it or whatever, or why do I have to change it? That's something that you have to kind of, humble yourself on as a sound engineer, I'm hearing, because it's not about what you see as its potential or how you want to make it done or create it. It's what that producer and what that songwriter is trying in their vision, and you're trying to recreate that. Going back to how I said, you're the zeros and ones, you're the computer. Like when you write a document on Word, it's not, now don't get me wrong, Word will tell you, okay, maybe the spelling of this word is a little different, but it's still the platform that you're using to be able to create your paper or whatever.
Yes.
You are the platform, you are the gateway to be able to create what this producer or the songwriter is trying to create. And so it's not to be insensitive, but it's almost like your opinion doesn't matter, but your technical parts and your skill does.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's another thing when it comes to this too, and that's our fourth point. It's you matter.
Yeah.
Your ideas matter. You have a place on this team. You are no less important than the producer. You are no less important than the songwriter. You are no less important than the artist. You have a vital step in the process of getting the project to its final result. While maybe the producer has his role and the artist and the songwriter has their role, you also have your role. And that doesn't mean you can't put yourself in the mix. That means you can't put that doesn't mean you can't put your personality in the mix. Just like I was saying, I just worked on this project or this album for Troy University. I put myself in the mix. And there's certain things that I listen to, and there's certain things that you can tell about me that were placed very meticulously in this mix, especially in the song Sods. I don't know if you listened to Sods.
I did. It's so good.
Okay. So as you know, in the song, in the beginning, I did not make that beat. That was, shout out Taj Jordan. He made that beat.
There you go.
And he sent it to me. He was like, hey, I want to put this on the Troy University album, because he knew I was head engineer. After a certain point, you hit a spot where the song is bouncing back and forth on the stereo track left and right. And then there's a whole new section where we introduce Sods, also known as Sound of the South, which is the Troy marching band. We get to that point, and there's now marching snares, there's bass drums, there's some of the horn section in there, and that was my idea. So that doesn't mean you cannot put your input in. That just means that as a final result, that is not your job.
But though you had that creativity in that, it was the producer and songwriter's approval that allowed that. And sometimes it's really beautiful to be able to see yourself in the recordings that you do. So we're not saying, you don't have an opinion, but the thing is, or don't have ideas, but it's ultimately the producer and songwriter's decision to allow those things in. So we still want you to create and be, passionate about what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And so, and that's going back to your part on that. It's you are valuable to the project beyond just the technical parts of it. Because, as a sound engineer, now this is just, speaking, I think that a sound engineer has to be a musician because if you are not a musician that understands music and you are mixing and mastering, you're just doing the technical part of it. It's like, okay, well, this sounds this and this, da, 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 and we're going to add this, whatever, whatever. But if you don't have that skill set to be able to understand what you are doing,
Yeah.
it will make a project, it will break a project, or it will make it where it's hard to work with you because you don't have that relatability and you're not able to connect with the songwriter or the producer to be able to do that.
And you don't have the knowledge to understand what's going on outside of the computer. You're not a robot. You're a human, and you're not a computer. You are a human being who has his own ideas. You are a human being who has his own free will. You can say what you think should happen. Just talk to your producer about it. And when it gets to that point, like I said, in SOTS, we implemented a whole new section where it was almost like Stomp the Yard. That's what I thought of when I heard this song. It was like Stomp the Yard. I want a marching snare. I want a bass drum. I want the horn section. And there was another song I did. It was Another Dream. And Harrison Gamber wrote that song. But what I was hearing was a mixture of three different things. He didn't know what he was doing when it came to what genre he wanted to fit in. And so I was like, well, I listened to this music, and I was thinking more punk rock, a little bit of old Coldplay, and maybe some of The Cure, which is from the 80s. Most of y'all might not know that, but it's from the 80s. And I was hearing a mixture of all three of those. So it's not to say that you don't just put yourself in the mix, but also you have an idea. Help your engineers, help your songwriters, help your artists. Make sure that you can not only interpret all the languages, but you can speak all the languages too, so that you can help convey the ideas that you have. If they get approved, then they get approved.
Yeah, and this is the reason why, we're not going to a computer.
Yes.
It's there's not a software. Now, don't get me wrong, AI and software is getting really smart.
Yes.
But there's a reason why when you do a project, you ask for a person,
Yes.
sound engineer, to come in and do this work. It's not that is saying that, a computer couldn't do it, but
Yeah.
there is emotion and connection and that, not, it's about the circuit. It's
Yeah.
all about bringing that circuit in where you're able to breathe life into it with the producer, with the engine, because the thing is, the project, like I said, back to the anatomy part, you're creating something and bringing it to life. So with the songwriter providing those bones and the structure of what it's going to look like, that sound engineer being able to put the meat on the bones to be able to see how it's going to be shaped, and that producer breathing that vision into it,
Yes.
it creates this beautiful thing that can then take legs and move, and now it's moving other people.
Yeah.
So that is what the goal is. So your expertise in the technical, in the computerized zeros and ones that I talked about, that's good. But so is I have an idea and I want this to be incorporated in this. Producer, songwriter, is this okay? Okay, cool. Now you've made it part of the project instead of it becoming your project.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
And one of the last things I want to talk about is once you are your own producer and your own engineer, you have the freedom to do whatever you want. What we're talking about is when you're in the industry, you're going to have someone who is the producer, and you're going to have someone who is more than likely you going to be the sound engineer. And when you become the sound engineer, you have a responsibility to do your job and what you're contracted for,
Right.
just like the producer is to do what they are contracted for. So, when it comes to all of this, know that you are a part of a team. That team has chemistry. That team has a oneness about itself. It's just like a sport. If you don't do your role in the sport, then your team, more than likely, is going to fail.
Yeah.
So you have to do your part to its fullest and to its maximum to make sure that your team and the product you are trying to sell is not only to its best capability, but to the producer, one of the things that they enjoy listening to. And they enjoy putting on their headphones in their car on repeat and making sure that they listen to it over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the beauty of being a sound engineer and the beauty of the music industry and what your role can be in this business.
Yeah.
So with that, do we have any questions in the room about sound engineering or what we've talked about? If not, then we will go straight into, how you can get connected with Joe, because he is an amazing sound engineer. He's a singer too, but he's an amazing sound
relax.
engineer. But we want to just open the floor in case anybody wants to talk about anything or maybe share their experiences as a sound engineer in the room.
Or share their experiences as a songwriter working with any sound engineer. Please, as a sound engineer myself, I would love to learn from not only the singer, because I am a singer and I do that to understand the language, but anybody else who is involved in the side of being a part of the project to help me understand where we need to go and how we need to get there.
Yeah. So, any questions at all? All right, with no movement, we're going to go ahead and close out. Thank you so much, Joe, for joining us this afternoon and this
Absolutely.
evening. Again, if you have not been to Wishbone Cafe, please do in Montgomery, Alabama. They are an amazing restaurant, and I mean, they have live music. They have a wonderful patio space outside. So if you need an event done or if you just want to get some good food, come over here. But with that, my name is Tatiana Webb, and this podcast is Off the Record.